Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Realtor.
How are you, Mark? Good to see you. Thank you for doing this, taking the time. I know how busy you are. For those of you who, for full disclosure for both members of the audience that might watch this, Mark and I have been friends for 20 years. I served, because I'm no longer active in fire service with Mark, I believe still active, Spirit of Princeton board with Mark. And much to Mark's chagrin, when I first moved to Princeton, we were neighbors for a few years. And then he got lucky and I moved. So anyway, thank you again, Mark, for taking the time. Why don't we start with what I think people don't know about your job, right? And I know we kind of talked about this morning earlier. What is it that the mayor of Princeton does? And I think just as importantly, what is it that the mayor of Princeton does do?
The mayor's job is interesting because you get him. Well, first of all, you get involved in everything that the town does, and every aspect of local government. The borough form of government, which is what we have in Princeton, is what's called a weak mayor form of government. So at a council meeting, mayor and council meeting, the mayor runs the meeting, but I actually don't vote unless there's a tie. So it's the 6 council members that vote on most things. I'm involved in the conversations, obviously. And, so the mayor, when the mayor wants to push something a certain way, they better know what they're talking about and they better be a good speaker.
You're much like the vice president of the United States. In the Senate, you break the tie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So obviously you have a tie-breaking vote at the council. You run the meetings at council. What other things are you responsible for? And, day to day and week to week, month to month?
Yeah, Josh, a lot of it's emails and meetings, right? So I have people emailing me all the time. I get 100 some emails a day just for my town email account. So it's a challenge to keep up with everything. But I'll have meetings with the administrator, the deputy administrators, or CFO, other council people. I could be meeting with county elected officials. I could be meeting with a state senator or assembly person. I could be meeting with a federal congressperson. It just depends what the topic is, because we get involved in so much, and Princeton is like such a vibrant place. People look to see what Princeton does on all kinds of levels. So, it's what makes the job interesting and fun. It varies day to day. And it's hard to predict exactly who you're going to be chatting with and dealing with each day.
Right. And Princeton is an amazingly, and that's really the function of today's meeting. And an amazingly intense town about everything. Right. So for people who don't know about your job as mayor, is it a full-time position?
Yeah. So in theory, it's not supposed to be. All the elected positions.
In theory, it's not supposed to be. Okay. So in theory, how many hours a week are you supposed to dedicate to being the mayor of Princeton?
Luckily I don't accurately track it, but it is a full-time job plus.
Yes.
So, the fact that I do have a real job and I have this.
So I wanted to make clear to people. So this is supposed to be part-time. You work literally full-time hours plus, right? Doing crazy podcasts with people like me, right? And you hold down a full-time job.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So when do you sleep, Mark?
Very rarely. Luckily, I've given up. It's a bad habit. Eating food is a bad habit. So if you give up eating and sleeping, it is amazing how much time you got.
It's an easy job. If you don't sleep and you don't eat, you got the mayor Princeton job now.
Oh, no big deal.
Awesome. And, for people who are like wondering what, obviously, and I've known you for a long time and I understand the personal and professional satisfaction you get out of this. We're going to talk about that. What does the mayor job pay per year in Princeton?
It's about $18,000, give or take 100 or.
You are amazing, Mike.
Yes. Well, it's at some point we got to, not only for myself, but for the council people also, we get invited to so many events.
Right.
It really costs you money to be an elected official in Princeton because there's so many.
I was just going to say, probably by the end of the year, right? With all the stuff that you do and all the events that you go to, it probably costs you $10 for every dollar they pay you, right? At a $19,000 clip, right? So,
and I haven't won the lottery yet, so I'm,
You haven't won the lottery. Okay. Well, we're waiting patiently for that one, I guess. So, and I wanted to start the podcast and the broadcast with that because I think it's important to realize the time that elected officials do put in agree or disagree with elected officials on a local level, that you're not in it for the money, right?
No.
Okay. So what do you get out of it personally? Like, I know you get a huge satisfaction. You've always been of service and in service in town.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, I think it's important to give back to your community. And there's a lot of great ways to give back to your community. And being an elected official in your community is just one of them.
And by the way, fire service, ambulance service, Spirit of Princeton, I'm sure I'm missing stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not been of service to this town for a long time.
Thank you. But, I think being an elected official gets you to another level of giving back to your community. Because it's easy, I think, to sit back, live your life in your community and say, oh, my community's not run right, or man, there's too many potholes, or what about this, or what about that? So you can moan and groan about it, or you could jump in and do something about it. So to me, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the armchair expert syndrome, right? I can't believe they did that. Meanwhile, they didn't vote. They didn't
attend any meetings. They didn't ask about why did you do it. So, and being an elected official, I mean, you just get to know so much more about the town.
Right. And that's really, honestly, everybody else, Mark and I have been chatting about this for a while, and you're talking this morning and do a little prep work. And that's really the function of today's broadcast, is kind of interestingly, and I don't mean this in any way selfishly, but so much in the world in politics locally revolves around real estate, right? The Board of Ed, they're worried about apartments. They're worried about kids coming in. They're worried about how real estate impacts their attendance, which impacts their money, et cetera, et cetera. The apartments being built. Residents, right, are worried about pilots and lieu taxes. And then we have the fire college thing. So really, Mark and I agree that what you talk about today is each one of those topics sort of in order. Not in order, but each one of those topics, because they are real estate related, which obviously is of interest to me and both listeners of my podcast, and I know you're one of them, Mark. And so why don't we start with the pilot? Like, there's so much, and again, like social media, Tap into Princeton, Planet Princeton, Instagram. You go anywhere. If you live in Princeton, it is a very intense community in that you have a highly involved, at least emotionally involved, if not tactically involved, right?
Yeah.
Electorate. So why don't we start talking about what is pilot, right? Payment in lieu of taxes.
Yep.
What is that? How did that come about? And how is that impacting Princeton?
Sure. Yeah. And typically that's used in a situation where you're trying to get a housing development built that includes affordable housing.
Right.
And in order to make the economics work for the developer, because the developer normally is building the development. They're taking the risk. They're putting all the money forward. We're not. But in order to make sure that they make enough money over the life of the loans that they're going to have, there's got to be some give and take. So the give and take usually means we're going to give you somewhat of a break on what you're going to end up paying to the town, or what you're going to pay, what you would have paid in overall taxes. That'll be reduced by some amount, and that's going to help make the project economically viable. So the advantage to the town is we are not asking our taxpayers to directly pay for a development that includes affordable housing. Somebody else is taking that economic risk.
So let's slow it down here, because there's so much that gets bandied about. And again, I think it's really great that we're kind of speaking to it. Pilots, the pilot program, and not just Princeton, by the way, this is a statewide thing with the affordable housing, which we'll talk about next. It's a great segue. What's the benefit to a resident of Princeton in the pilot program?
Yep. No, so let me give you what I think is a great example. So if we look at what's been built off of Terhune Road lately, there's new developments on the north side of Terhune. So we're Standard Circle, the two office buildings used to be. Avalon Bay has a development there. And then there's another development called Princeton Senior Living. Now, Princeton Senior Living was one where the town put up the money to build those 80-some units of senior affordable units. The Avalon Bay project, pretty much around it, Avalon Bay put up the money and built that project. Avalon Bay has a pilot program with us, a pilot agreement.
Right.
So what happens is the money that Avalon Bay pays every year in that pilot payment, we then use to pay the bond payment for the Princeton Senior Living Project. So that means that the taxpayers are not directly paying for the Princeton Senior Living Project. If we did not have that pilot agreement in place, then that bond payment due every year would be included in everybody's taxes. So in this case, it's an advantage to every taxpayer in Princeton.
So let's, again, this is, we're going to not go off topic, but we're going to spin from, the original agenda. Why is Princeton responsible for the housing community, the senior housing community?
Well, Princeton has, every town in Princeton, every town in New Jersey
Yeah, I understand.
Has an affordable housing mandate.
Well, not, but the senior one specific.
Well, the thing is, we built the senior ones because you get credit for that against your affordable housing obligation.
That's where I want people to realize, right? So
there's a mix of things that you can do, right? So you can build affordable senior units. You can build affordable units for anybody that there's a whole bunch of state guidelines about who can apply and how big an area you have to advertise in. But assuming you're meeting all that, there's a wide area of people that can apply to your housing. But, so you do rental units mostly because that's pretty much the only way that people are going to make the money over the long term to pay for the project that they built. But, there's a need for senior housing. So the town was like, okay, there's this need. We can do this as part of the affordable housing work. So let's do it. I mean,
right. And I think 99% of the populace would not be aware of the fact that the senior community offsets the affordable housing.
Yes.
Right. And most people don't realize, like, why is Princeton paying for it? Well, because we have a legal obligation to the affordable housing statute in the state of New Jersey. So,
yeah. And since it is a component of the affordable housing obligation overall, I mean, you look at it. So who's living in the senior housing? Seniors. So we're not generating more children for the school system. It's an advantage there. And, so all this stuff ties in, the pilot, what kind of housing, et cetera, et cetera. It's, at the end of the day, it's all about trying to achieve the best balance you can.
Right.
The thing you have to do, you want to try to have the best or the least negative impact on the community. By the same token, there's other good impacts you want to have on the community. I mean, there's a big need for senior housing in this community.
Yep.
Right? It's like, we created 80 some units. It's like, well, that's better than what was there before. There were none. So,
yep. And yeah, there is a massive need for senior housing. There's a massive need for housing in Princeton. I know people for or against it. There's a massive need for housing. And I will say from a perspective, being in the real estate space, all those rental communities are filled with people who now want to buy homes in Princeton, right? So, if you're a homeowner and you're against those communities, long-term, you're hurting your own equity. Like, that's the funny part about it, right? And I can understand people hate change, even though it's the only thing that's constant in life. But let's talk about affordable housing, because it is not only a big issue in Princeton, it is obviously in New Jersey is a massive issue. And we were saying this morning, I always think you have to live under a rock right now not to hear about the affordable housing and municipalities suing the state and banning have a suit in the state. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the judge just told those guys to get lost last week. If I don't want to misspeak, but I think that's not going anywhere, that countersuit with the state. So what is the affordable housing mandate from the state? Let's just start there, the Mount Muller Agreement. Why don't you just take 2 seconds and explain it from your position as the mayor? What is the Mount Muller Agreement or statute, and how is it impacting Princeton?
Yeah. So the Mount Laurel Agreement goes back to either 74 or 75. I think it was 74. Basically, in Southern Jersey in Voorhees or Mount Laurel, not Voorhees, sorry. But in Mount Laurel, there was a lawsuit basically saying, why can't I live in this community? This town is actively working against us. So the state, through the courts, decided, okay, there's a need for affordable housing throughout the state. There's a need for every municipality in Princeton to be fair about this and not create blockages to allow for reasonably priced housing to be built in every community. So in Princeton, it's interesting. Long before Mount Laurel came along, there was a fair amount of affordable housing already built in Princeton. So Princeton was way ahead of the curve. And for many years, we did a pretty good job of providing affordable housing. We slipped for a little bit for a number of years, and that's why there's so much affordable housing going up right now, because we're catching up some. which was in what's called round 3 of the Mount Laurel decision. We've just entered round 4. So the other night at the mayor and council meeting, we agreed to, the state has given a number to every municipality in the state. Our number, I think, was 276. We agreed to the number. And by agreeing to that number under the new state law, the changes they made to it, we are now protected from a developer coming in and suing us and saying, hey, you know what? We're going to do a developer's remedy, which is we're going to tell you what we're going to do on piece of property X, and we're going to build this huge thing. And since you're not meeting your affordable housing obligation, the courts are going to agree to us, and we're going to build pretty much whatever.
Let's talk about that, because I know you've been pretty vocal about this in the past. So if people in town or just anybody watching this broadcast doesn't know what a developer's remedy is, a developer, and I'm not going to name names, a big builder or even a small builder, theoretically, though generally speaking, was a bigger builder, would come in to a town, Princeton, West Windsor, Millburn, and say, under the law, you're behind on your affordable housing contribution.
Yep.
We're going to build this here because you're behind, and this will catch you up. And if you threaten to litigate with us, the state's going to sign with us. And it was very much a bully tactic by developers, not only in Princeton or wherever, but throughout the state.
Yes.
So to be clear, by accepting the 276, you have prevented this from happening on the go forward. Is that fair to say?
That appears to be the case. And the only reason I say it that way is that, again, this is very new legislation.
Yeah.
So if we go by what the state representatives have said, then that's an accurate statement. And I believe that will be what happens. But again, since it's new legislation, and as you said, there was that group of 20-some communities that tried to, and probably will still try to contest this. So a qualified, yeah, you're right.
Qualified, possibly, mostly, we're right. Okay, awesome. So how many more units is Princeton obligated to provide?
So in this round 4, which just started, it's this 276 units. So now,
276.
Yeah. So now we're going to have to decide, how are we going to provide this, right? Because there's a couple different ways to do it. The senior living development I talked about was where, we put up money ourselves, had somebody build it for us, and the taxpayers pay for that. The other most common method,
It's offset by the pilots here.
Well, yeah, but it didn't have to be. But I mean, well, yeah. I mean, that one we got lucky and had a pilot help us pay that off. But you don't always have that opportunity. So, I mean, the other thing is we could just build housing and just roll the cost of it into everybody's tax bill. So that's not necessarily the best option. But the other most common option is what's happening with wind development and Avalon Bay is pretty much, I need 20 units of affordable housing. Josh Wilton Construction Company, will you build those 20 for me? Oh, I'd love to build them for you, Mark. But in order to build your 20 affordable, I got to put 80 market rate units on top of that to help me make my, economically make this work. So I'm going to build 100 units. You're going to get 20 affordable and I'm going to get 80 market rate. And that's the usual way it happens when you go out and hire a developer to come in and help you.
That's the give and take that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I'm not real happy with that. I think the 20-80 split is too much in favor of the developer. Although a lot of people I talk to that are much more knowledgeable than I am about the economics behind these developments is that it's hard to find a developer that's going to want to do a different split because, again, the margins are pretty tight.
Yeah.
And maybe that's true, but if I look at what the rents are that you're being charged day one for the market rate units and the market what the market will bear in this area, I see those rents are pretty much going to be jumping up every year. So I don't know that the 80-20 split makes sense. And maybe the split should be a higher split of affordable units. But it also brings in questions of like density. How much density? Where are you going to put these developments, right? So there's a lot.
I think people don't realize that Princeton is legally obligated, subject to financial penalty, to provide these units, right? I think it's not Princeton, but it's every municipality in the state. So, and if you don't provide them and you get behind the 8 ball, a builder can come in and be like, you know what, I'm going to build X. Thank you very much. Rubber stamp this, move right along. And the town more, and not that that doesn't have any say, but they lose a lot of the control they would have had.
Yeah, you'll end up back in court, and the court's then going to say, okay, we're going to help you figure out how you're going to do this. And that's going to work to your advantage.
Right. And every time we dance around the tree, you come back to the same place. As I always said. How many times you do that dance, right? So anything else on the affordable housing is, how many more rounds are there from that might be coming Princeton's way? Round 4.
Yeah, not really sure what's going to happen after this round. I mean, that's a good question. I assume that it'll just keep going, but it's, with the lawsuit pending from these communities, I think it's going to be a mix of what happens with the changes in the law for round 4, what happens with the lawsuits. It's, hard to say what the state's going to be doing.
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk, well, obviously we can talk about real estate and the Board of Ed, right? So does the mayor have any affiliation with the Board of Education?
What we do for the governing body is we have a liaison to the school board.
Okay.
So
we as in the mayor's office, or we as in the council?
Yeah, the governing body, the mayor and council. Okay. So we have an official liaison. And you try to do as much communication through that avenue as possible. Although there are times, and over this past year, myself and a couple of council people have met with members of the school board and the superintendent to discuss different issues. The superintendent, Kathy Foster, who's been a temporary superintendent and a great superintendent, great relationship with her. She and I have talked a number of times on different issues. So, being mayor, you're lucky. You can call somebody up and say, hey, it's the mayor. And most people are going to say, oh, okay, you want to talk? Yeah, okay, I'll talk to you. So, the office carries some weight with it, and you can get involved with a lot of different people in town, a lot of different institutions.
So it's more in a communication capacity. The Board of Ed operates independently. I think sometimes people there's a lot of, obviously in the world, conspiracy theories, right? So I think people are thinking everybody's in cahoots with everybody else. And I know it's not that here, right?
It'd be so much easier if we all were, but that's just not the case, right? I mean, the school board's fully independent of us. We're independent of them.
Right.
What they do, what taxes they decide to levy, that's up to them. We have nothing to say over that. What taxes we levy, they've got nothing to say over that. But you would hope that on certain things where there's, some joint interests, that we'd be able to get the two bodies to talk enough to do what's in the best interest of the taxpayer. Because, Josh, at the end of the day, okay, there's school tax and municipal tax, and there's other taxes, county tax, etc. But it's all coming, whether it comes out of my right pocket or my left pocket, it's still one of my pockets. So,
yeah, you're right. So let's talk about, taxes. Princeton's a pretty high tax obligation levied on, real estate holders, right? And I asked you this question this morning. And I think part of the frustration of any constituency is that there's never a plan to cut. There's never a plan that says, hey guys, here's some, and I'm, using these words, fat on the bone, and we're going to cut it. As the mayor looking at the expenditures in town, a lot of times, a lot of very smart professional people are saying, look guys, this isn't sustainable long-term. The salaries, the pensions, is there a plan, or has anyone ever said, hey, let's cut X, Y, and Z? Or is it just like, ask the populace to keep reaching in their pockets? And by the way, you pay too. You guys live here, right? So it's not like you're getting out of this free. And the $18,000 they're paying you doesn't offset any of this.
Yeah. So you're right. So I'll say this, the town is financially, fiscally, very responsible and pays a lot of attention to where we're spending the money. But it's really hard to save money. I mean, we've saved money on any number of things. We do that. So let's take some of the services we provide. We used to have this unlimited brush and leaf pickup where we'd show up literally every day throughout the year. Talk about burning up fuel and exhaust into the environment, into the atmosphere, and just using up public service personnel time, public works time and everything. Kind of crazy. So we cut that program back. And we saved a lot of money. But then what happened on the other side? We cut back our garbage collections, to 1 day a week a few years ago. Okay, but garbage collection went up 100% last year. the recycling program that we have to pay for, even though the county administers it, went up over 100%. So we figured out ways to save blocks of money, but we've had other things come at us that have chewed up those big blocks of money. I mean, health insurance for municipalities, if you're in the state health plan, have gone up. And it's just amazing. The state wasn't properly funding the state health plan. I mean, you can't do that. You can't say, well, let's save everybody money for 5 years and not increase something. Well, year 6, 7, and 8, you got to make that up.
Right.
So, what the town has tried to do is, your first question, we have tried to save money in a number of areas, but we've been hit with huge increases in other areas that have pretty much wiped those savings out. But if we had not made those savings, the increases people have seen in their taxes for the municipal part would have been even significantly greater. And I don't think people quite understand that because they're looking at the final bill. They're not looking at, all right, it went up 2%,
but let's explain. Let's take a minute to explain. So if your tax liability, Princeton, let's just say is $10,000, what percentage of that does the municipality keep?
The municipality is about 20% of the tax bill. The schools are about 50%. The county's probably about 25% or so now.
By the way, I will go on record saying we do overpay from whatever we get from Mercer County, just my opinion.
No, that's a whole nother debate. But the county's been very good to us the last couple of years in helping us with open space. But anyway, on top of the county tax, the school tax, the municipal tax, we locally, we also have an open space tax, pretty minimal. The county has an open space tax. There's a separate tax started in like 2012 or something to pay for the library. That was a state decision that if you have a library, you're taxing on that.
Yeah, on it.
Yeah. So, it is. I get it that people look at the municipality.
I think people look at their taxes, and it depends what kind of mood they're in. Right? They're going to go, oh, Princeton, meaning the municipality, Princeton, is gouging me. You guys are only keeping 20 cents on the dollar. Like, it's an amazingly lean number of the gross, right? So the school does take 50%. We're not going to get into their spending habits, but, and then the county keeps a decent chunk of that. So, you guys do operate on a very lean percentage of the tax burden.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize that. I think it depends on the emotional quadrant there. Like if you're having a bad day and, you're mad at your tax bill and they didn't pick up your garbage there, you're going to freak out about Princeton. And Princeton's overpaying me. Princeton's not keeping them much money.
Yeah. And I think the fact that we consolidated made a big difference because, the budget of the town is less than what the budget of the two prior towns were. I mean, our financial ratings are higher, our reserves are higher. So that consolidation has really financially helped every property owner in this new combined town. So that was really a good move.
When you think back to it, like it never really made sense anyway, but that's in the history book. So let's talk about a new development. And we were chatting about it because it's one of my personal bugaboos. Princeton has a fair number of historic districts.
21 of them.
21. And my face is getting red already. I'm not gonna do it. So I'm not gonna get all crazy. So 21 historic districts throughout Princeton, which again, in my opinion, is high because it's a personal bugaboo. But you guys are making an effort to help, for lack of a better description, figure this out. Because if I am a builder, I am a homeowner, or even, I would say even more importantly, if I'm a new buyer, right?
Yes.
And I'm buying the property and I'm like, well, it's functionally obsolete, but I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. You have to know that law, and or your broker has to know that law before you go to contract.
Yes. Yeah.
And you guys are making efforts to make this more clear. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah. So, one of the big things that we've done is we've hired a consultant to come in and help us create objective guidelines for the historic districts. Right? Because right now, you go in front of the Historic Preservation Commission and it's more subjective than objective.
Yeah.
They understand that. And they helped us write the RFP to bring in a consultant to say, let's create solid criteria. So Josh can say to his person who's about to buy a property that you're trying to sell, hey, you're in this historic district 9 out of 21 or whatever it is. And here's the guidelines for your property. So this going forward, right? Because a lot of people buy a property and go, oh, I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. Well, they want to know what they can and can't do. So if we had, and we will have, criteria that's clear, then that's a lot better for everybody. So that is something that's overdue, but we are getting there. And
look, as you know, I'm pretty much opposed to the concept of historic districts. I understand zoning. I understand you need it. I do think private property is in fact private. I think you can build within the zoning limitations, but historic districts, I'm obviously on the record against. That being said, I do think it's a step in the right direction for clarity for homeowners and prospective buyers. Is there any remedy for a homeowner? And I've talked about this before. It's in a historic district, right? And because of the district that they're in, their house is now going to sell for probably 30% less than a house that's not in the historic district. So their time is in Princeton, whatever. They're going to walk out of Princeton with 30, maybe 40% less than a house that's not in the historic. Do they have any remedy, or is it just this is it?
Okay, you're the real estate guru. I'm not, but I would think that based on what you just said, that you're probably talking about a property that's not in the best shape, and not a property that, for whatever reason, the homeowner was not able to keep up to what most of us hope to be able to do with our properties. Because I think a property,
it's mixed. I think across the board, houses in certain historic districts trade significantly less because of the restrictions that are placed on them. Now, that being said, those restrictions were very subjected to the board. So if they had a bad day going to them, nobody really knew what they were getting into. So it inhibits development, inhibits private buyers buying it because there's no really clear set of rules as to what they can do. So I do think it's the right step in the right direction. Having some sort of clear set of rules where people can hopefully go online and, this neighborhood, here's what you can do, here's what you can't, here's how you can expand the footprint.
It'll be interesting to see the impact once those set guidelines are released as to how they affect for what you just said. Because if that is occurring, because people are worried about, well, I'm not really sure if I go and ask if I can do this, even though it seems logical, am I going to get approval or not?
That's a big problem. Yeah, and ultimately people want to do what they want with their house within reason, right? Districts obviously can't do that. So I think that's great. I think it's a huge step forward for the town, and I think from the people who live in the district to be able to go online and say this is what I can and can't do would be really nice. And then for people who are buying or developers or people who want to invest in real estate in Princeton, there's a big gray area in that space.
Yeah, you want a pretty certain idea of what the heck you can do.
It's a lot of money at stake, not the least expensive town going. So let's talk about another big, again, it's so much in town, like it's funny, a lot of it does revolve around real estate because real estate drives taxes, the whole thing. So let's talk about the Fire College, because this is, I would say, on your part and the council's part, daring. So why don't you explain maybe what the Fire College is, where it is located, in case people don't know, and then what happened with it, and then I don't want to say the words plan of attack, because that negative implication.
It's all good.
What's the town's intention with what they're doing? I want to be clear with eminent domain and all the other stuff. So why don't you kind of take it back to what it was, what Ryder did, Bruce Afrin, and then forward.
So Westminster Fire College, about a 26, 27 acre property, kind of not the exact center of town, but located. Yeah. Located in the former borough, right? The middle school is right above it. The high school is off to one side of it. Linden Lane is on the other side, comes down to Hamilton Avenue. Beautiful property. Rider University bought the choir college some number of years ago. And as time went by, maintaining the music program at that facility and all the students apparently became a problem for Rider. And Rider was like, okay, we got to move the whole program to our campus in Lawrence. All right, not real good if you're a choir college person, obviously. So over time, it's been a problem. Rider at one point said, hey, we're going to sell the property. A company in China that appeared to be a manufacturing company posing as some kind of educational company said they were going to buy it. Big public uproar, which there should have been. That plan died. And as this thing continued to go on, then Princeton Theological Seminary stepped up and said, wait a minute, we think we're the actual owner because you're no longer using it for the purpose that it was
given to you for.
Yeah, you've moved the function to another place.
You need to clarify that for people who don't know the origin of what you just said with the seminary and that particular tract of land. Just give some.
Right. So when the tract of land was originally deeded over to become what became the Westminster Choir College, in the deed, I'm not going to be saying that I don't remember all the exact wording, but it was tied to, you will be, teaching music,
Yes.
furthering, the Protestant religious beliefs, views, something.
It came from the seminary. It became the Choir College. In the handoff, the deed, it said, this is what you're going to use it for.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now you're not using it, which in a real estate world, this is where attorneys get involved.
Right. So that's why this whole thing became so complicated. Rider University, we own this no matter what. Princeton Theological Seminary jumps in and says, no, we think we now own it. And then you have, who we mentioned, Bruce Daffrin, representing a number of former students, faculty, other interested parties, just saying, hey, this should remain Westminster Choir College no matter what. Bring back Westminster Choir College, more or less. So a very complicated series of lawsuits and interactions on a legal basis. It seems pretty clear to me and to the governing body that the best buyer of this property is the municipality.
And when did you guys announce this? It was just a few months ago, I feel like, that you guys announced this.
Oh, this has been a while. This has been Yeah, it does fly, right? But, we'd announced a while ago that we are going to get involved and we are going to try to become the owner of the property. So this is still ongoing. So I can't say, it's too bad we're not maybe in a month or two, maybe I could be giving you a lot more information.
But we'll do a quarterly Mark Freda update on Wilton.
There we go. But we think the municipality gaining ownership of the property is in the best interest of the community, right? You don't want whatever outside firm, developer or something coming in.
You don't want a manufacturing plant in the middle of Princeton?
Nah, not this week. Maybe later. But you want to control what happens there. I mean, do you want somebody to come in and build, I don't know, hundreds or 1,000 housing units? I don't think we want that. Or do you want some other use there that, just we haven't figured out what somebody else might try to do there?
Surely we're remaining at the idea. So,
well, yeah, 26, 27 acres in the middle of Princeton. Come on. I mean,
yeah.
Wow. If I'm a developer
to the campuses of the high school and the middle school, it's right there. So,
right. So our belief is that if we gain ownership of the property, the first group we're going to talk to is the schools. Do you have a need? Now, the schools, the referendum just got passed the other day. They might say yes, they might say no, but we're going to talk to them first and let's see if there's something, again, because if the schools need more property, if the schools want to build another school, and I'm not saying they want to, I'm just projecting, who knows?
This is theoretical, both listeners.
Yes, please. Yeah, read the small print.
Listen to this podcast.
Yeah. But, it just makes sense. Again, us acting in the best interest of the overall community.
Having control of it. Yeah. And I do think it's probably generational, if not multi-generational opportunity for the town to kind of take control back. Our seal.
I think it would be terrible 50 years from now, somebody said, wow, you had a chance to buy this property and you didn't.
I agree. Yeah. Hindsight on that one will be pretty catastrophic. Especially depending who eventually might get control of it. So how long until you guys, meaning the governing body of Princeton, have a semblance of an idea what may happen with that? Because I know Bruce is a pretty formidable attorney, Yeah,
he's good at what he does.
He's very.
I think the whole legal aspect of this could even out fairly soon. Next couple months, 3 months, possibly. It's possible.
Honestly, I would have said this is a 10-year process.
I can't recall exactly how long we've been working on this, but we've been working on this for a while now. So, but I think
like you just announced it though, like a formal announcement. You're going after it.
No, I think what happened most recently was that at one of our public meetings of the Mayor Council, we said, oh, by the way, we are now going to we're going to go out and get a $50 million bond to give us the money to be able to purchase the property.
So you're not using eminent domain on this?
Well, that was the other thing we also passed that night, that we are giving our legal counsel the right to file for eminent domain to acquire ownership of the property. So those were the two things that happened most recently, but we've been working on this much longer than when we made those.
And the announcement. Fair enough.
Yeah, we voted on those two things at a meeting.
Right. And for people who don't know what eminent domain is, why don't you explain what eminent domain is? Well,
Yeah, it pretty much says,
from the governing body's perspective.
yeah, it says a municipality, and interestingly, a school board also can do this, but for the public good, you can go in and basically say the public good far exceeds the right of the owner of this property. We are going to take ownership from you. And then there's a whole process. I mean, of course, the property's got to be appraised. You got to pay the fair value of the property. It's not like you get to say, hey, I need the property for something and I'm giving you $10.
Yeah, you don't get it for $1.
Yeah, right. So it's not like it's not a financial bargain. It just gives you the right to get a property that you might not have been able to get otherwise, but you still have to pay fair value for it.
Right. Please don't do that to my house, Mark, okay?
Ah, darn it. Okay.
Take that off the governing body's list. So thank you for today. I have one last question. If you had a guess, like think about it for like 0.1 seconds. Who's your favorite realtor in town?
Josh, you mean there's other realtors besides you?
I don't think there are plenty. I don't think there is. Thank you, Mark, as always, for your time. It's very generous. I hope people will have a better sense of, I think, not only what you do day to day, and literally 7 days a week, this man is working for reverse income and the council. And I appreciate this, and I hope this can be an ongoing dialogue, and you keep us informed of what's happening in town. And if I'm a citizen of Princeton and I want to get involved, what are my options? Like, where can I go? What can I do? Do I come to the council meetings? Can I see them on Zoom? There seems to be a little bit of a black hole in terms of communication on these things to the populace.
Yeah. So if any resident or anybody, you don't have to live in town, but anybody who wants to pay attention to what we're doing, we have a weekly newsletter. So you can sign up for the newsletter. You go to our website. Princeton.
What's the website, Mark? Just so people can hear it.
Yeah, princetonnj.gov. Okay. And on the website, there's information on everything, but there's a way to sign up for the newsletter. So that every week comes out. That gives you what's happening in the very near future, big things happening, etc. Our mayor and council meetings twice a month on Monday nights usually. You can come and attend them in person here at 400 Witherspoon. There's a Zoom link. Again, go to the website. You go to the calendar. You go to Monday night, 7 o'clock. Click on the link. You can join by Zoom. You can also watch it on YouTube. But the advantage to Zoom is if you actually want to make a comment in the section of the meeting about public comment, you can actually make a comment. Obviously on YouTube, you can't. And if you're here in person, you can make a comment. Right. But there's ways to see what we're doing and know what's going on. The other thing is we have boards, committees, and commissions. And if you go to the website, there's a place to say, hey, I want to join one of those boards, committees, commissions. And there's a whole list of them. Hey, here's my first choice, second choice, third choice. And we try not to appoint people to these groups and have them there for life. So, we know there's other people who want to get involved. So we try to let people, join and, you're there for a few years and maybe somebody else comes in new. And we try to do that just to let residents get involved in what's happening in the community.
And I know you're a big advocate of that. I know you push for people to be involved in every facet, whether it's, fire service or, rescue or, Spirit of Princeton or, the municipality. So, I think I would assume, and it's probably safe to say that part of the board and the mayor, like the governing body's frustration is the people who aren't involved other than the salacious things they might say on, in, social media or a nasty email or something like that. Right. So thank you, Mark, very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it and appreciate your time and your expertise. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Josh, thank you. We appreciate it. Great questions.
Thank you, Mark.